Welcome to Rock and Roll Fridays, a podcast on musical encounters and life.
Welcome to Rock and Roll Fridays. And I'm so happy that I have another guest with me, someone that is a South Jersey legend in his own mind and other people's minds. Welcome to Rock and Roll Fridays, John Falco.
Hello, Mike. Thanks for having me. This is my podcast voice.
Everyone should have a podcast voice.
Many people don't know that I have a podcast voice, but I do indeed have a podcast voice.
It's great because you should always use your podcast voice when you're not doing a podcast also, like when you're ordering a coffee.
I'd like a grande skim latte with soy milk and oat milk, please. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So, John, you do many things other than play music. Obviously a creative at heart, design, music. So tell us a little bit about yourself. So the audience, which by the way, I'm huge in Guatemala and I'm pretty massive in France. So,
well, I'll be sure and drop some French and some Spanish vocab.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not popular in South Jersey or Philadelphia.
Well, you know, I hear you're big in Japan.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about yourself and especially around your music and your design.
Okay. Well, one things I'm known for is I do all the cans at Tonewood.
Tonewood Brewery, for those that are unfamiliar. Actually, I am enjoying a Tonewood right now. So,
which one are you drinking currently?
I'm drinking the Fuego.
Oh, okay, good. I'm drinking an Eclipse beer, a peach sour myself. So I do artwork for Tonewood. I do like everything for them.
Which is, by the way, one of the better breweries, not only locally, but as you talk to people in this region.
Yeah,
people are like, "Oh, have you had Tonewood?" And it's like the word is out about them.
I have an analogy that I always use where it's like, I don't know if it's an analogy, but it's like your friend's band that even if they were terrible, you would support anyway. But I happen to be a huge fan of this band, so it's like, I'm going to go to your shows, but I'm going to drink your beer. I would buy it. I'd pay money for it.
Right, and everything they put out gets better. So
yeah. I'm they right now on they've got this large variety of beers. It's not all dank IPAs, which I can kind of exhausted on the IPAs right now, but so there's a little something for everybody there now.
It's awesome. So you do all the design for them, but you also do.
I print screen. I just started a screen printing business. Do lots of freelance and do a lot of graphics for bands and stuff for their CDs. And and I make really bad dad jokes and do dad stuff.
Where can people check out your work, your design work?
Well, on Facebook there's Falco Print and Design. Or you could go to the liquor store and buy some beer and pick up a Tonewood 6-pack.
And then see the work, enjoy the work itself.
Yeah, yep.
So you also play music and played in bands.
Yep.
What kind of got you into doing that?
Well, I just grew up in my whole family. I had older siblings. They all liked music. So that's kind of what got me into it. I thought it was cool. I now realize that it's not cool at all, but it's too late. I'm too deep, man. I can't turn away.
Yeah. Music is definitely the whatever drug of choice. It is definitely pulls you in and does not allow you to get out. You can't get into music and then say, nah, I'm not going to do it anymore.
Well, here's the funny thing is, like, I love playing music. Then I listen back to myself and I'm like, oh, that sounds terrible. And I'm like, I just can't stop though. I'm like, but I want to do it again, you know?
Yeah. And I've seen you play a bunch of times, and
I'm sure was
like the analogy of your friend's band, right? It's, and we could do a whole show on your friend's band and where that started and the percentage of, wow, these guys are actually pretty good, to I just wasted my entire night, but I supported my friend's band.
Yeah, that's what drinking is for.
So the type of music you play, I mean, you're a songwriter too, right? So you're
Yeah,
playing
I like
acoustic guitar and
yeah, I like rootsy stuff. It always ends up being kind of rootsy, like uh bluesy influence, classic rock sounding, ish.
yeah.
That's classic, not classic rock, maybe just classic, whether it be.
So I ask a lot of my guests, what is it about music that gets someone like me to have a podcast and talk to people about music? And there's so many things about music. Back when we were growing up, MTV was mind blowing because videos started. And then now with the internet, the kids today have music based on TikTok and their dance moves, right? Like what is the power of music? What makes it never go away for people?
I think it fills a it films the I keep saying film, I mean fill. It fills a certain realm, be it whatever you want to call it, spiritual or sonic, or it just some place in our psyche it fits in, and it's a constant, and it always has, whether it was a primitive form of music or whatnot. It's just a component that's essential to life,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. It's there's never part, I think, of part of music fans' life where music isn't part of their life. I mean, my brother the other day was at Walmart and heard Allison Road by
In Blossoms.
yeah, and
Yeah.
he texted me. He's like, I haven't heard this song forever, and it's just like yesterday. And I thought it was just so interesting that something like that happens, and it probably happens a lot every day for people, whether they're driving
Or
or
dude, it happens in Wawa all the time. Or like, I don't know, post something on Facebook like, I just heard this song in Wawa.
right. And then you're transported to a moment or
And
a
I'm
feeling.
transported to like 7-Eleven.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, the premise of Rock and Roll Fridays is obviously what we talk about is the common man, normal people like us, unnormal, not normal people meeting, our favorite bands, or meeting an artist, or meeting someone famous. And I know you have a story around Pearl Jam
Oh yeah. Yep.
that is close to your heart, literally close to your heart.
Yeah. Yep.
Can you tell us a little bit about what occurred?
Yeah, sure. I worked in a CD store for 7 years. So there were, occasionally I met musicians. But one of the standout moments was when Pearl Jam 10 came out. I was hip to them before, not that they were ever that hip. They were kind of like on the grunge scale. They were like the frowned upon grunge band. Because I mean, even then I was like, this is classic rock.
Yeah.
But at any rate, so they did a record release signing at one of our stores.
Was this in Philly?
This was in North Jersey.
North Jersey, okay.
Yeah. So I worked at a chain of stores in New Jersey called Compact Disc World. Worked there for 7 years. At any rate, they were doing the release, and so we went. It was the meet and greet, blah blah blah. So went there and met them, and they were all in line, and we shook their hand and talked to them, blah blah blah. Then turns out later on, my girlfriend at the time, well, I coincidentally just talked to a couple hours ago. I still talk to her. She says, I forget how she said, but she's like, yeah, they were trying to get me to go home with them.
Wow, that's shocking. A rock band trying to get a woman to go home with them.
I wasn't really shocked, and I wasn't like, I'll kill this son of a bitch.
Right. I'm going to end their tour.
Yeah. Yep. Tour ends early. So the story would be a lot better if she actually did go home with him, because now I'm like, oh, okay, that's it. I didn't get bad. It was cool. But it would have been so much better if she went home with him and I was like, I lost my girlfriend to Pearl Jam. They weren't even
did
yet on tour.
did
They were just
did a lot of bands do come into the CD store for kind of meet and greets and
yeah,
things
I
like
mean
that?
not huge bands, but yeah, Boston came in one time, the band Boston.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because I didn't ask for their autograph because I didn't really want it. You know, I don't even like, I'm not like an autograph guy. I just like, so sometimes I'll feel obligated to ask for an autograph and I'll like feel bad. I mean, it's probably doing them a favor, but I just feel guilty. I'm like, oh, I should ask for their autograph. And
Yeah, it sounds like a Larry David episode.
yeah, yeah. So I didn't ask for it and I felt guilty, and I don't know why. And they probably did not even care, but I felt
Well, I'm
guilty.
sure they're still thinking about it to this day.
They're probably still making money. What happened? One of the guys died, didn't he? I don't. Did he kill himself?
Well, I don't mean to be mean, but I'm not a huge Boston fan. So if I had
Yeah.
to listen to that music over that long a period, I would probably
Well,
do it too.
that's that stuff was good. I mean,
I, I,
the first thousand times.
yeah. And one of my uh, guests had a show. We had a show about prog rock, which I'm not the biggest fan about, but hearing him talk about Boston,
Mhm.
Kansas, Rush,
Steve
like
Morris from
some of
Kansas.
these more progressive rock bands, like
Oh,
the musicianship alone, and listen, I'm being funny or
oh,
kind of being funny, but I understand the musicianship it takes to do those
yeah,
kind of songs,
yeah,
and it was pretty groundbreaking during that period of 70s and the 80s. So
yeah. But and then you get the pendulum swing to like punk rock, where they're like, "Fuck you, we don't need to be able to play our instruments. We're gonna do it anyway." So
right.
it's punk rock, but I like it all. I grew up on the prog stuff and then punk rock too. Everything,
Yeah.
it
What
all.
and that's a and I know you have kids. It's like how do you how do you how do
So
you
it's funny because people are like, I was always like listening to cool music, and people were always like, "Hey, what are you listening to?" And now it's like, "Oh, we've listened to Cat Stevens like this whole month." Because like I when I listen to music now, it's with my kids in it, so I'm always going backwards and playing like Cat Stevens or John Coltrane, or I mean, there was like, we did the Beatles for like the first 10 years of their life,
right.
and now we're moving on to other things.
Yeah, I have friends that they'll text me, they'll be like, I'm so happy my kid's listening to like Beck, or you know, listening to like Oasis, and they're
Yeah.
doing it on their own.
Yes, yes. Well, that's what, like, I'm at the point now. I have a 13-year-old daughter. I played her some Rage Against the Machine the other day. She texted me about like, "Oh, you should check out this artist. I think you'll like him." It was awesome, dude. It was made me so happy.
Yeah.
She's got no
I
clue
mean,
about
and
Amy.
I think every parent, daughter, son, you know, has those moments where, you know, I talk about it all the time. At the time, it felt like torture, but my father made me listen to this guy
Yeah. Uh-huh.
all the time and oldies music and the Beatles
Mhm.
and doo-wop, and you get kind of a musical history, right? You start
Yeah.
to realize that these artists back in the 50s and 60s not only had to play their own instruments,
Mhm.
they really had to know how to sing with limited technological enhancements in the studio,
Yeah.
and they had to tour like crazy to make money, and
Right.
they
Mhm.
wrote all these songs that then bands later on would take and modernize and play
That's
rock and roll to.
one of the things I always try to stress to my kids is like the building blocks. I'm like, this song came from this, or this artist is emulating this artist. So
Yeah, it's Bruce Springsteen talks about like the chain. There's this long chain of
yeah, yeah.
songwriters and bands that are all connected, and I mean you see it even artists today, unfortunately, as we get older, the Lady Gagas are looking at Madonna as influences, and
Right,
like,
right. Mhm.
it's all about the influences, and I think it's cool. Um, you know, it still happens to me. If you've never heard a band before, and you're whether the band's from the 50s, 60s, or 2000s, and you discover them for the first time, it's like listening
I
to
love
new
I
music.
I love when that happens. And I've got some gaping holes in my musical knowledge, but I love that I can go back and listen to a band. I'm like, oh, I should have listened to this. I knew they were good, but I didn't know they were this good. And then you listen to it and you're like, you get that, oh yeah, feeling.
So when you were shaking hands with Pearl Jam, did you
Oh,
know at the time? I mean,
no,
did
oh
you
no.
know at the time they were gonna go
Um,
into the stratosphere as a band?
no, no. I mean, we just knew it was a awesomely solid album. I didn't know it would become like, they'd become a household name basically.
Right. Yeah. And and that's the thing about bands too. It's like the Beatles started off as a garage band, like
Yeah.
all these bands, I think a lot of times fans think they were always famous. It's like they took years to get to where they got to.
Yeah, well, I mean, the Beatles didn't take that long. I mean, they didn't last that long. That's the thing too, They were like 10 years or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, some bands take that long to get noticed.
Right.
So,
I think, unfortunately what's going on now, you can't really see live music. And I think it's still a treat when you're out and you hear a songwriter or a band and your ear just kind of is be like, oh yeah, that's a really good song. Oh,
yeah,
oh, that's an original band playing an original song. And I know a lot of my friends have talked about just missing those moments, even a band playing cover songs. It's like, okay, they sound good.
right.
Um, and hoping to get those moments back sooner than later.
Connections, yeah. You know what really yanks my chain? When people say there's no good music out anymore. They don't make music. It's like there's plenty of good music out there. There's plenty. You just gotta
Well,
find it.
there's plenty of good music out there because in the history of the world, I don't think there's probably been a time period where more
Yeah,
music has been listened to
right. And made.
and made.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, again, it's every generation, the ability to listen and to get music has become easier,
Yeah,
right?
that's Ned Sunstein calling me. Ned Sunstein, everybody.
He's on the cast.
Yeah.
He made it.
Yeah.
It's like you mentioned the Beatles. It's like if your kids wanted to download the entire Beatles catalog, they could do that in 5 minutes. Where
Yes.
we had to, compact discs and CDs and buy multiple.
And there was something to be said for that too. That's like an adventure and a journey, and you get a little more intimately educated, like doing the research of, it's, oh, I got to remember to buy this when I go to the store instead of like, what was on that list,
Right, right.
more tangible or something like that.
So as we wrap up here, what's the
Oh,
one
I'm just
thing
getting started, baby. I'm just getting
we're
started.
gonna have it? We're gonna have a double album. You'll have to come back another time. The one great thing is
Garage tapes.
the one great thing is I keep my podcast short for a reason.
Yes. The
What's
basement
I mean,
tape.
what's the one takeaway you can tell people about maybe discovering a new band or a new sound? Like, how do you go about kind of finding that new thing?
Well, I mean, algorithms are pure evil, but sometimes they work. I mean, there's so many bands I've heard like they've just come on like my internet radio station. I'd be like, "Oh, what's this band?" So I don't know, do some. So it requires some research, but if you know what you like, there's a market that's like, I mean, people want to try to make money too, and they can be good at what they do.
Yeah.
So it's accessible. You just, it's got to, don't expect to hear it on the radio. That's all.
Right. Right.
That's my takeaway. Don't expect to hear it on the radio.
John Falco's takeaway. Don't expect to hear it on the radio, and go buy Tonewood because I designed the cans.
That's right. Also, I don't know. I can't think of anything else.
Well, John, it was a pleasure having you on. I'm glad you could tell
Yeah.
your story. You know, most men will think, well, your girlfriend must have been okay if Pearl Jam was trying to take her away from you.
Oh yeah, yeah. She was. She was.
Right. That's the one thing you have over Pearl Jam. You kept your girlfriend and they didn't get her.
Right. Yeah. Thanks. That's so reassuring.
Well, John, thanks for being on Rock and Roll Fridays.
Yeah, man. Rock and Roll Friday, everybody.
Thank you.
Peace out.
That was good.
Yeah, man. Okay, so I'm